The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for this day.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
And a good afternoon, everybody. This is indeed the Michael K. Show. We thank you for joining us on this Thursday, January 30th, 2025. How you all doing? What a great time to be listening to Sports Talk Radio. So much stuff going on, so many stories to hit on. But we're going to start with the New York Knicks. That was impressive, man. That was impressive. Beating the Nuggets, slapping them around, winning by 10, 122-112. They now have a record for the most points scored over a 3-game period in the history of their franchise. If you watched that game yesterday, you had to be impressed. In fact, Nikola Jokic said that they are one of the top 5 teams in all of the NBA. He said that they are a championship contender. And when you see them play the way they played yesterday, it's hard to argue. Now, I told you the other day, the Knicks could beat anybody on any given day. The only thing that they're missing is consistency to do it game after game after game. They slip every now and then. But when they play like they played last night, it is hard not to be overwhelmed by how good they could be. And remember, they're doing this with one of the key components of their offense being taken away because Karl Anthony Towns simply cannot shoot threes the way he's capable of shooting threes because of the injury to his thumb. But he still gets it done. He essentially shut down Jokic yesterday. Now, Jokic is going to get his points, but he didn't dominate the game. The thing that impressed me, I'm watching the game, and in the third quarter, it looks like the Nuggets are about to run away. Now, remember, the Nuggets have institutional knowledge of how to be a champion. It wasn't that long ago. And they've got a guy who is a perennial MVP. And it was a good time right there for the Knicks to just roll over and say, this is not our night. No, that's not what they did. They battled back, and they absolutely took control of the game. They took it by the neck and took control of the game. And one of the most impressive things to me, that at the end, from the end of the third quarter to like 5 minutes into the fourth quarter, they played their bench, which came up huge. Campaign was out there. Deuce McBride was out there. And they extended their lead during that time. You could see slowly but surely that Tom Thibodeau is starting to get more confidence in the guys on the bench. They've got guys that can play. The bench played like the final 4 minutes of the third quarter for the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, maybe even a little bit longer. And he was allowed to do that because they did not falter. They did not let the lead whittle away. No. They built on it. And he kept them in there until Campaign took an absolutely ridiculous three-point shot about 3 seconds into the 24-second clock. And then Tom said, okay, that's enough. And he brought back Jalen Brunson. And Brunson, by the way, the accolades aren't enough. They really aren't enough. He was brilliant, dishing out assists over 30 points. He did everything you want him to do. Everybody contributed. Big threes by Achua, big threes by Bridges. Great defense by Hart. If you're a Knicks fan and you have something to complain about with this team, well, I don't know what to tell you. Are they going to win a championship? Well, you know what? It's hard to win a championship. I'd still say the Celtics are better. Because, again, they have institutional knowledge of how to win a championship. The Knicks don't yet. Are the teams in the West that scare me? Yes. Oklahoma City scares me. We saw what they've done to the Knicks. But now the Knicks have played games against good teams, and they flourished. Next up, the Lakers on Saturday at the Garden, and the Knicks catch a break there, too, because Anthony Davis is out with an oblique injury. They should be able to beat them. Now, you know that LeBron's going to want to put on a show. He's going to be in the world's most famous arena. He's going to want to put on a show. I get it. Stop him. They are running on all cylinders right now. And then next Saturday, Celtics. I love watching the Knicks team play. If you've listened to me over these 2+ decades, I am not prone to hyperbole. I'm just not. It's silly. Why oversell? Just tell the truth. Not overselling this Knicks team. I love watching them play. Brunson is brilliant. Brunson, I mean, at times he made Russell Westbrook look like Russell Westbrook, who's a pretty good defender, like he was standing still. Driving into the lane. This is not a big man. Now, he's strong. He's not tall. He creates angles, and he has timing that's exquisite. He sees things. He sees the court almost from above. Finds his cutting teammates. How do you not love watching Jalen Brunson play? My son kept asking me, you think he's ever going to win MVP? I don't know. I said, I mean, he could. But think about how far we've come. That we can actually consider that maybe he could win an MVP one year. He's not going to win it this year. Going to go to probably Gilgeous-Alexander. But he's in the discussion. He's a top 5 player in the NBA. Goodness, he's good. I saw this stat. There's a follow that I have on X called New York Basketball. It's a Knicks-centric site. And I saw this this stat, and I just was blown away, and I said, I've got to relay it to the listeners. So yesterday was the Knicks' 32nd win, right? Do you know that equals the most wins that they had in any of the 6 full seasons prior to Leon Rose taking over in 2020? I think things are so good right now that we actually have forgotten how bad they were. And what a magnificent job that Leon Rose and his staff have done. Yeah, I talked about it with Ian Begley and Steph Bondi when he was on with us as well. And I don't understand why Rose doesn't stand up and, accept his flowers, do interviews and stuff like that. But I guess you don't have to. His work speaks for itself. Let me say it again to tell you exactly how huge this is. So the Knicks are 32 wins after that win against the Nuggets. That equals the most wins they've had in any of 6 full seasons prior to Leon Rose taking over basketball operations. And it does prove another thing. I've always said Jim Dolan wanted to win. Always said it. He doesn't scrimp on anything. The facility they have in Westchester is top flight. He just hired the wrong people. He trusted the wrong people. Isaiah Thomas, Phil Jackson, whatever the case may be. The coaches he hired, it just didn't make sense. And even when he hired Leon Rose, this is after Brody Van Wagenen just completely crapped the bed as a Met GM. You rolled your eyes and go, oh, great, he's going to hire an agent. It didn't make sense at the time. A brilliant hire. Putting together this team. Look at this team. Look at this team. It's all created by him. All of the players on the court acquired by him and his staff. Think about how they have overturned everything that was done wrong for 2 decades. They've done it quietly. They've done it efficiently. They've done an unbelievable job. Unbelievable job. I give them such credit. I hope the new regime in Florham Park can do the same thing with the Jets. Because we look at the Jets, right? And they haven't been to the playoffs in 14 years, and they've been under 500 for however long. And the Knicks were worse. So, obviously, the Jets look like an absolute dumpster fire right now. But I assure you, the Knicks were worse over a longer stretch of time. Yeah, you'll throw in that occasional 54-win season, but for the most part, they were an inoperable force. Everything they did wrong. Everything. And now you roll out a team like this. It's exhilarating. New York is a basketball town. And when the Knicks are good, the Knicks can own this town. I remember when Riley was here and then Van Gundy. For those that, we've got young listeners, I understand. But if you weren't around then and those that were around then, you know, baseball season, the Yankee and the Met season didn't start until June. It didn't start until the Knicks were done. That's how much the Knicks can have sway over this entire city. And now, Leon Rose and Associates have built something that's worthy of that. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And yesterday's game was such a clinic. Such a clinic. How could you not like it? Now, there's one thing that I don't like, since we're talking about basketball. And our first guest is going to be Mike Breen at 1:30. And then we'll have Buster Olney at 2. So we got a big show planned. But Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, was on with Dan Patrick on his show yesterday. And in it, talking about some changes they might think about with the NBA. And he's thinking about, he really likes the idea of cutting the quarters down to 10 minutes from 12. And that would cut the game time from 48 minutes to 40. And he said, a short, and I'm paraphrasing, a short attention span society, a nice 2-hour package of basketball is preferable to what they have. I hate the idea. Remember when it was floated out there by Manfred about, the golden ninth inning or whatever, the golden batter? People's heads exploded. How could you even think about that? What a bastardization of the game. You're going to change the essence of NBA basketball? For what? The games now take 2.5 hours. That's not that long. And with the money that people spend to go to an arena, 2.5 hours is not a real heavy lift. So now you're going to turn it to college basketball, which is a 2-hour show. I wonder, if I had Adam Silver on, I'd go, you just negotiated these multi-billion-dollar contracts with NBC and ESPN and Amazon, and you took all their money to actually televise this product. You did a great job. Well, now, if you cut the games from 48 minutes to 40, let's round it off. You're taking 20% of the product away. Are you going to give them 20% back of the rights fees that they paid? Because those extra 2 minutes in each quarter, you're selling ads. You're making back that money. They asked Malone yesterday, the coach of the Nuggets, and Thibodeau, the coach of the Knicks, about they don't like it. You're changing the essence of the game. You are completely rendering irrelevant every single record in NBA history. Points per game, individually, team-wise. What are you doing? 2.5 hours is too long? And he also referenced, well, look, baseball shortened the game. No, baseball just sped it up. They took away all the extraneous nonsense of adjusting batting gloves and walking around the batter's box while you prepare for the next pitch, or a pitcher walking on the backside of the mound. They didn't change it from 9 innings to 7, which a lot of people wanted, because in doubleheaders during COVID, They were 7-inning games. And that was done out of necessity because of COVID. And there are some people that want it. You know who wants it? The people that work at the stadium, the people that broadcast games. Don't listen to them. I wanted a faster pace game. It never bothered me that a game was 3 hours. Is it better at 2.5? Yes, it is better at 2.5 because it's got a better pace to it. But would I want baseball games to be 7 innings so the time at the ballpark could be shorter? I'm surprised at Adam Silver, a really smart guy with a really dumb idea. I hope this never, ever comes to being. Ever. It's brutal. Let's keep it 48 minutes. It's always been 48 minutes. Let's keep it. You want to make the NBA game, the product a little bit better? Eliminate the corner three. Eliminate the corner three. Maybe push back the three-point line a little bit more to make it a little bit more difficult. But if you eliminate the corner three, you'd have more inside action. The corner three is the shortest three. That's not changing the essence of the game. 48 to 40 minutes, that's changing the essence of the game. 1-800-919-3776. Let's get you involved. I have to read this because I'm a big fan of Allan Hahn. He follows this show, Don Hahn and Rosenberg. He's kind of done what I did, going from print to electronic, and he's done a great job. He's excellent on the air. And this year he's essentially the person doing the halftime and the on-court interviews for the Knicks on the MSG network. Now, I happen to be really good friends with Peter Vecsey, the longtime NBA columnist, Hall of Famer. I worked with him at the Post. I love the guy. And I've told the story before, and I'll tell it in the future again. He's played a large role in the career that I had, especially in print. But he can border on being curmudgeonly and also brutally, viciously sometimes honest. He'll say it about friends of his. He used to say it on the air. Now he's got a Twitter feed, the whole deal. So what am I getting to? He tweeted this out last night. And I just texted Allan about it because I don't know if Allan saw it. But I want you to know what Peter Vecsey, who I think is the preeminent NBA voice. I think that any of the local papers, I know Peter is, I think he's 80 years old now, sharp as ever. He should still be writing an NBA column. But this is what Peter Vecsey tweeted last night. Allan Hahn is NBA's most informative sideline studio authority. Nobody in his position with the Knicks is better prepared or asks more appropriate halftime, post-game questions. His skills as a former Newsday sports writer have made his transformation since 2010, 2011 positively impeccable. This is Peter Vecsey. Allan, I know you'll be on at 3 o'clock, and you're probably too humble to even address it. You can't get a bigger compliment than that. You just can't. Knowing Peter and how highly he thinks of the NBA game and how critical he is of people that actually broadcast. I mean, he'll eviscerate you if he doesn't think you're doing a great job. Goes out of his way to essentially anoint Allan Hahn as the best. I think Allan Hahn is unbelievably terrific. But what does it mean coming from me? Peter Vecsey. Allan, puff out your chest and strut around, baby. Walk around like George Jefferson today. That's unprecedented. And he's right. So kudos to my colleague, and he and Don and Peter will follow this show at 3 o'clock. 1-800-919-3776. Let's start off the show with our good buddy, our basketball authority, Spike in St. Pete. Spike.
Hello, Michael.
Hi, Spike.
Hello, Michael. I'm
How
good
you
now. First of all, always good to talk to you. And the splitting up of the two shows gives us more hours, so it's working out well. I get to talk to Allan, my basketball guy. Peter Vecsey invited me to the last iteration of the New York City Basketball Hall of Fame dinner in 2017 at New York Athletic Club.
Yep.
Hosted by Tina Cervasio, and I sat next to royalty. To me, Sat Sanders and Lou Carnesecca, and I went over and said hello to Cal Ramsey. And when I told him I watched him play at NYU, it was like I just smiled on Cal's face because he always sat right behind the bench. They accommodated him. He did public relations things. So I thank Peter for that, and I just reconnected with him about 3 weeks ago on a dog basis because he's a huge dog lover, and my background. So let me tell you how Allan Hahn is. Allan Hahn is the best, and I hope he's listening now. I've said it to him 50 times. We go into it once in a while on strategies and the three-point shot. I can't stand the three-point shot from the corner. I don't like it, but this is what they gave me. And I think Leon Rose, and I sure hope on a baseball standpoint, the Mets GM, I'm a baseball fan, that's my other sport, I hope he's taking notes. Stearns is his name.
Yep.
Because Leon Rose, what he did, the odd part was my father, 50 years ago, did business with Leon's father, Zev Rose. It's a small world. But last night I watched that game, and the Celtics used to kill their opponents before the first time out in the third quarter. Brunson put up 18. This team's close. The East is 3 teams. You could write it down. Notwithstanding injuries, it's the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Cavs. We have a pretty good history with the Cavs. I hate the Celtics' guts. I've said that, and I'm not hiding about it. And I think that we have the best basketball coverage. Why Peter, who was born in 1943, doesn't have more visibility, I hope you get him on once in a while. That would be wonderful. Because I also speak to Sonny Hill, who's 88 years old. He's on IP in Philadelphia. He has a Sunday morning show. And we go at it pretty good. So that's like royalty. That's like you speaking to Mel Allen. You know what I'm talking about? It's just royalty. And for Peter to say that, Allan, he'll probably be speechless. But the Knicks are really good, Michael. They're really good. Their defense integrity has improved. They got 3 guys that connected. You give me any GM in the NBA, forget their 2 big superstar scorers. You give me OG Anunoby, you give me Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart. If you don't like any one of those 3 guys, you shouldn't be watching the NBA because they're busting their ass on every play. And I'll tell you, don't throw Denver out yet. They may be the only threat to OKC in the East. So I love my Knicks. I'm 79 years old. My dream now is one more chip, and we have a shot. It may not be this year. It may be. We have one more. I want to see one more before I got next up in heaven. And I know you're enjoying this. I see the smile on your face.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Spike. I appreciate it. 1-800-919-3776. Mike Breen's coming on with us next. We'll talk about the Knicks, where they are, the game yesterday, which was really, I hope I'm not overhyping it. I don't think I am, because I just felt it watching the game. And I'm sure the people that are listening to the show are legitimate sports fans, and how could you not enjoy what you watched yesterday? It was exhilarating if you're a basketball fan. Exhilarating. So Mike Breen coming up next. Right now at Bay Ridge Honda, kick off the new year in style. Come and get New Year's savings all month long. Explore amazing deals across their full lineup of Honda cars, trucks, SUVs, hybrids, and EVs. New Hondas are in stock and ready for you. Save thousands on a new Honda with 0% APR, or drive a new Honda from $229 a month. Don't miss the biggest savings during the Kick Off the New Year sales event. Plus, receive thousands in benefits and savings with their Bay Ridge Plus Advantage plan. Upfront pricing, total peace of mind. Visit BayRidgeHonda.com.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
TaxAct knows filing taxes can be confusing, so we have live experts on hand who can help answer any questions you may have. Questions like, can I claim my SUV as my home office if I answer work emails in my car? If I adopted 12 dogs this year, can I list them as dependents? And Am I doing this right, or am I doing this very, very wrong? Our experts have the answers to those questions and many others. Tax Act. Let's get them over with.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
So, everybody, Lids is opening a brand new store, and you're invited to the grand opening celebration this weekend. Stop by this Friday between noon and 2 p.m. for a chance to win a $150 shopping spree with Peter Rosenberg. That's right, Little Petey. On Saturday between 10 and 11 a.m., meet Yankees great Nick Swisher. It's all happening this Friday and Saturday at Lids on West 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenue. You can also score a $50 Lids Times Square gift card on the ESPN New York app. Just find the contest tile and submit your entry. Get in the game and make it a day to remember at Lids. We're going to talk to Peter in tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show also, we're excited, we're going to have John Sterling on because it's an important day for him. It will be the beginning of his 65th year on this planet being on the air. Think about that. He started on February 1st, 1960, and he's going to join us tomorrow at 1:30 to talk about that incredible milestone. So he was 21 years old when he started. He's 86 years old now, and sounds as great as ever. I talked to him a lot, and he sounds happy, and he sounds rested, and we look forward to talking to him tomorrow at 1:30. 1-800-919-3776. We are having a little difficulty getting a hold of Mike. Mike Breen's supposed to join us in just a moment, so let's make you the guest right now. 1-800-919-3776, 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Jimmy in Connecticut. Jimmy, what's up?
Hey, Michael, loving the new show, man. You're carrying the load by yourself, and I'm enjoying it a lot. They're getting me through the second part of my workday. So anyway, listen, it's a great time to be a Knicks fan again, and I was kind of lucky enough, sarcastically, to become a fan right in like the beginning of like 2002, 2003, whenever the rails were just starting to come off. I think my first memory of Knick basketball was McDyess injuring his knee in the preseason, so that was not a great time to start. But anyway, Knicks fans that are kind of concerned about the lack of depth on the bench, I think it's really being overblown, because when you look at teams when they get to the playoffs, they all go down to an 8-man rotation, which kind of in a way levels the playing field. Now, it may impact certain teams differently, depending on their conditioning level, the age of the core. But when you look at, and the other thing, too, is, now, one thing that has concerned me this season is those two games against OKC, because they, I believe, are the team to beat in the NBA. I think the NBA championship will run through them. But much like the Yankees with the Dodgers, you don't have to worry about them until you come out of the East and go to the finals. So I just think you take your chances. And when you look at the Knicks starting five, I just think I would put them up against anybody in the NBA. I don't know if you agree. I think it's something you could debate. But I think pound for pound, this starting five can go toe-to-toe and beat any team in the NBA. You talk about it on any given night. We'll see if they can do it in a playoff series. But, hey, when was the last time we felt this way?
I don't think we felt this way since probably the Van Gundy years. And I will tell you one thing about the depth. I don't think it's overblown. And I do agree with you that come playoff time, well, it becomes an issue of an 8-man rotation. That I understand. But they need to have a deeper bench so that you don't have to play the guys that are starting 38 minutes a game. And I'm not a proponent of load management. I love the way Tibbs uses his team. But you want fresher legs as the season moves on. You don't want them to be exhausted at the end. I'm not talking about injuries. I'm just talking about fresher legs. So if McBride can give you 10 minutes, 12 minutes a game, Oh, I mean, what a respite that is for Jalen Brunson, who really does carry the load on this team. I think it's so important. And although he would be coming off the bench, I think Mitchell Robinson is so key to what they do moving forward. He is a rim protector. He makes a difference defensively. That's what he's about. So I think they're going to need him. He's still not, they say he's running and jumping, but he's still not dealing with contact when he's practicing. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that maybe you have a situation that he comes back third week of February, maybe, and I think that's being very, very optimistic. But I think Mitchell Robinson is huge, and I think that, just having guys like Campaign and guys like McBride, guys like Precious Achua, all of those guys are important, just to give the starters a little bit of a blow. Let's go to Charles in White Plains. Charles.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Charles. What's up?
It's so nice to have you back on the radio.
Well, thank you.
I really love listening to you. Listen, I realize you were on TV for quite a while, but I just love listening to you on the radio.
Thank you, man.
So here's my question, buddy. What are the Yankees going to do about third base? Do you think they'll come up with maybe getting somebody, maybe Bregman and
Bregman is not an option. They don't want Bregman. They don't think his swing plays at Yankee Stadium. So Bregman's out. They're not going with Bregman. I think.
You're my Yankee. Who do you think is going to be there?
Right now they're saying they're going into spring training and saying it's going to be either DJ LeMahieu, Oswaldo Cabrera, or Oswald Peraza. I'll believe it when I see it. There are players out there that they can go to. I think that one of the keys, they are committed to staying under the threshold, the final threshold, which they have crossed the last 2 years. So for those that say they don't cross the threshold, they've crossed it the last 2 years. So the bottom line is, if they can trade Marcus Stroman, then they can make a move bringing somebody in. But in terms of a big play like Bregman, they've never had interest in Bregman. I mean, you could say whatever you want. People could report whatever they want. They never had interest in Alex Bregman. I think Alex Bregman is a good player. I don't think his involvement with the Astros cheating scandal has anything to do with that decision. I think there are a lot of teams out there that look at Bregman and go, that power that he has at Minute Maid Park does not play in other ballparks. That's why most people are saying is probably the best place for him to end up would be back in Houston. But Jim Crane is a guy who's going to dig in, and he doesn't give 7-year contracts out to his players. He doesn't. Didn't give it to Springer. Knew he'd have to give it to Tucker. Traded him. Didn't give it to Altuve. Gave Altuve a 5-year deal. Does not go 7 years. Wouldn't give it to Garrett Cole. Never gave it to Verlander. That's his thing. He's not going to give out that contract. But I don't think the Yankees are in play. I don't think they've ever been in play. And I don't think they're going to push their payroll to that limit. I mean, Bregman's going to make $24, $25 million a year. You would think. Yankees aren't going to do it. Now, from what I've heard from different people, they're also not interested in Nolan Arenado. And I will tell you this, and I think the entire Yankee organization disagrees with me. That's a play I would make. Because if I could get the Cardinals, who are desperate to trade Nolan Arenado, to eat a lot of his contract, and I know he's up there in age, but that guy could play third base with anybody. He is not Josh Donaldson. I think he would be rejuvenated on a team that has a chance to win a championship. I don't think you'd have to give much to get him. And by the way, the more you give to get him, the more the Cardinals would eat contract. So I don't dismiss that, but everybody that I talk to that has any connection to people with the Yankees say they have no interest. That would not be the way they go. Would they go a rise? I guess you can go Arise, and if you go Arise, then Arise plays second, and he's your leadoff batter, and then Chisholm plays third. But the interesting thing is, as good as I think this Yankee team is, and I think it's the best team in the American League, and I also believe that it's better than it was last year, even with a great player like Soto leaving, they don't have a legitimate leadoff batter. They don't. That's the one missing piece on this team. Obviously, third base is a huge question mark. Everything else is filled, but who's your leadoff batter? Do you want a 21-year-old being your leadoff batter in Dominguez? He has the skill set to do it, but that's a lot of heavy lifting for a kid. Do you want Volpe at the top of the order? He had a .297 on-base percentage last year. I think of all the players, of all the skill sets of all the players on the projected 26-man roster, he probably fits it the best. But he hit better and performed better when he's dropped in the lineup. Maybe a year older, he can do it. Jazz Chisholm might be an option. But with Jazz Chisholm, I want his 30-plus home runs in the middle of the order to drive in runs. I don't need him for 150 times a year coming up with nobody on base. Those are just some of my thoughts. So as good as this Yankee team is, in my opinion, they do not have the prototypical leadoff hitter. And then what Boone said the other day, it could be one guy one against righties, one guy against, I don't like that. The Yankees played great baseball last year when Gleyber Torres moved to the top of the order and actually did well after being terrible at the bottom of the order in the first half of the season. He found something leading off. And he's not your prototypical leadoff guy. But he took pitches, foul balls off, gave Soto and Judge a look at what the pitcher has early so they could do damage in the first inning. Now, I was not a proponent of bringing back Gleyber. I think because there's a lot of negatives about Gleyber too. But he was a pretty good leadoff hitter. This year, the Yankees have to solve that issue. Hey, when you work hard, you save hard. So treat yourself with well-earned savings all month long at Bay Ridge Mazda. Get financing rates as low as 0.9% APR on nearly every new car in stock. 0.9% APR. Their goal is complete credit approval regardless of your score. Plus, enjoy Bay Ridge Plus benefits like ding and dent coverage, key replacement, windshield protection, and roadside assistance. Visit them today in Brooklyn or online at BayRidgeMazda.com. See dealer for details.
Harry Douglas here. Say goodbye to bulky, clunky shavers that clutter your bathroom. Not only do you get an incredible shave, Panasonic's Palm Razor has a sleek, elegant design that adds a touch of sophistication to your bathroom. It also conveniently charges with a USB cord. Visit shop.panasonic.com/sports to shop for the Palm Razor. Use promo code HARRY for 10% off exclusively for ESPN radio listeners. That's shop.panasonic.com/sports, promo code HARRY.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton bedding from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with airy blankets, cloud-like duvets, and breathable sheets. You'll experience pure comfort on night one and feel your bedding get softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first order at bollandbranch.com with code SPORTS15. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You know the deal. It's Superbox Bonanza 6. Each qualifier will take home an ESPN prize pack and have a chance at one of 10 Superbox prizes, including a Ninja Air Fryer, Solo Stove, Ray-Ban Meta Wayfarers, and more. Be caller number 10 right now at 888-987-ESPN to select a box for the big game with a chance to win $250 in the first and third quarters, $500 at halftime, and a final score payout of $1,000. All brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, Sloman Security, and Security Dodge. Shop 24/7 at securitydodge.com during their President's Day sales event. We'll get to another Super Box in the 2 o'clock hour as well, and we're going to talk with Buster Olney. Still trying to track down Mike Breen. If we don't get a chance to talk to him, maybe we'll do tomorrow. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Carm in Tom's River. Carm.
Hey, Michael K. It is a pleasure to speak with you.
Well, thank you for calling, Carm.
And I'm loving this time slot for you. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I'm having fun.
You sound like it. You were talking about the leadoff spot.
Yep.
I think Oswaldo Cabrera would be fantastic for that role. What do you think?
I'm a Cabrera fan, but the one thing I worry about is his inability to hit right-handed. Because he batted left-handed against some lefty pitchers. I think that has to get solved, or he either has to solve it, get better at it, or hit totally from the left side, even against left-handers. I'm not sure if he can play every day. He certainly has the skill set. We shall see. I think that DJ's probably going to get the longest look because they still owe him $30 million over the next 2 years. And, hey, that's just a function of reality. They owe him a lot of money, so they're going to see if they could get something out of it. And I think that Oswaldo Cabrera would be next. And he would be a guy that could actually lead off if he gets to play every day. But I don't like different leadoff hitters every single game. I just don't. And I don't know if Oswaldo's going to play enough to get a significant run at the leadoff spot. Let's go to Mitch in Chicago. Mitch.
Hey, Michael. How you doing? Appreciate you taking the call.
Thanks for calling, man.
Yeah, I've had a blast watching the Knicks this year. The last 3 games have been so much fun to watch, and you can see they're really starting to click. The one thing I'm kind of worried about is, and I feel like this is the consensus, is the durability. And I've heard that people want to have them go get another piece of the deadline. But the one thing is they don't have a ton of assets. They've already given up all those assets for Bridges and the backup players and the bench players they have now. They kind of need those guys. So what's one thing or what's something that you think they could do to really avoid that kind of wear and tear and that durability collapse at the end of the season?
Well, I mean, it's a little complicated, Mitch, because one of the things they have to do in order not to go over the second apron, which no team wants to do, is they can't take back more money than they give out. So strangely enough, and people aren't going to like hearing this, the one tradable asset that they have that can get them back something of substance because of the money that he's owed is Mitchell Robinson. Would you trade Mitchell Robinson for another big guy that's available and healthy? And would a team take a chance on Mitchell Robinson because of his extraordinary potential and upside to do that? I don't know if the Knicks want to do it. I mean, I think in a perfect world, the Knicks' depth situation would, in fact, be changed if Mitchell Robinson was healthy. But if he's not going to get healthy enough to play this year, maybe the Knicks would trade him to get a player who's making about this. I think Mitchell makes maybe $12.5 million. Then you could bring in a big that could actually help you. So I think their best play is to get Mitchell healthy, but that doesn't seem like it's been easy to do. That's been a little bit of a concern. 1-800-919-3776. Game Time is brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, because when it's game time, it's Tully time. At 7:30, the Islanders, red hot by the way, are in Philadelphia to play the Flyers. At 7 p.m., Bryant takes on UMBC. That's on ESPNU. Why do we tell you that? Because Chris Carlin, our lovely Chris Carlin, is on the play-by-play. And at 7 p.m. on ESPN TV, it's the Pro Bowl Game Skills Showdown. There you go. That's 7 p.m. Tullamore Dew, the original triple distilled, triple blended, and triple cask matured Irish whiskey. Be sure to grab a Tullamore Dew or try the new Tullamore Dew Honey during tonight's action. Glasses up to enjoying Tullamore Dew responsibly. It's kind of interesting. We've talked about how people think that the NFL is in the tank for the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl, and that's why they have so many calls go their way. And I was looking at something that Pro Football Talk sent out, and I just thought it was really, really interesting because it does address a problem that the NFL has to deal with. Before gambling became legalized, Roger Goodell, the commissioner, this was in 2012, did not want the legalization of gambling. And he said, if gambling is permitted freely on sporting events, normal incidents of the game such as bad snaps, drop passes, turnovers, penalties, and play calling inevitably will fuel speculation, distrust, and accusations of point shaving or game fixing. So you throw that into it as well, because I think when people are intimating that the NFL is in the tank for the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not even intimating about gambling. They're just intimating about, more than intimating, that the NFL wants Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. I think it's absolute lunacy to even think like this, where they would actually potentially cripple the Golden Goose by maneuvering for a team to get to the Super Bowl. They don't need Taylor Swift to drive ratings in the Super Bowl. They just don't. Last year's Super Bowl was not the highest rated Super Bowl, and guess what? The Chiefs were there and Taylor Swift was there. Do they dislike the extra eyeballs that Taylor Swift could bring with younger people? Of course not. They're not stupid. They're businessmen. But here's what I would tell you. Whenever you have a conspiracy theory, before you think about the machinations that it would take to actually rig games so that a team could advance, don't go that route. Whenever you're in that position of, gee, I wonder what's happening here, why don't you just go to the easiest explanation, which is this: ineptitude. It's a hard game to officiate, and the officials sometimes screw up. Now, maybe subconsciously, when they screw up in favor of the team that's the best team, that seems to win all the time, and that knows how to win and doesn't make many mistakes. Now, is Roger Goodell sending out signals to the referees and the officials? No, of course he's not. But people are human beings. So I would err on the side of just not doing your job well, rather than being so buttoned up to put together a conspiracy to fix games. I don't believe it. I think it's ridiculous to go that route. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand why people want to fall on that. Just fall on ineptitude. Sometimes people aren't good at their jobs. And I think the NFL officials are good at their jobs, but it's an extraordinarily tough job. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that they're exhausted from their regular job, and that if they were full-time officials that it would be better. No, I don't believe that. Major League Baseball umpires, full-time. Angel Hernandez was full-time. Did it matter? No, he made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. NBA officials, full-time. They make mistakes. Always err on the side of ineptitude. Don't err on the side of conspiracy. Conspiracy is hard to cover up. I know conspiracy is a big thing in our world right now. It's hard to pull off conspiracy. It really is. It's very hard. All right, when we come back, Buster Olney will join us. We'll talk to him about the latest with Pete Alonso. It's all coming up right here on The K Show, 880 ESPN.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
This is the Michael K Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
Welcome back to the Michael K Show, hour 2 of our 2-hour radio program. And then at 3 o'clock, it's Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. Should be a great show. I'm sure Allan has a lot to say about the Knicks' tremendous performance against the Nuggets. So look forward to hearing that as well. Now we talk some baseball, and we bring in my good friend from ESPN, Buster Olney. Buster, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. Great to talk with you.
I wanted to get your take on this. First of all, I thought the Mets did a great job with their amazing Saturday at Citi Field, bringing all the players there, up close and personal with the fans. But, you've been doing this a long time, as have I. And I thought that Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, his brutal honesty is so different than anything that you see owners do. Usually they talk around subjects. And really, Steve Cohen just went up and in on the whole Pete Alonso situation. Did that startle you?
Totally, because you and I know that for the most part, the owners hide. And I thought what Steve did, first off, the crowd response to him, where he, is there chanting Pete's name and they're booing David Stearns. Cohen starts to speak to them like the grandfather. Pipe down, kids. Here, let's talk for real. How many owners in baseball could do that? If Bob Nutting, the Pirates owner, tried to do that with the fans in Pittsburgh, he'd be shouted down. A lot of owners would. But Steve has credibility with the fan base because he's gone out and he's done what he said he was going to try to do, and he's spending money and generating a big payroll in an effort to win. And so he's coming from a position of credibility, and he's not worried about saying the wrong thing. He's going to tell the truth. And by the end of the monologue the other day, he had the crowd turned around and they understand their perspective to the degree that, probably it was a pro-Pete crowd when it started. And by the end, it was definitely a pro-Cohen crowd.
And I think a lot of owners also would have some trepidation of going up and in like that on a Scott Boras client because they don't want to lose Boras. But I look at it the other way, Buster. Scott Boras can't afford to lose Steve Cohen for his clients in the future. So, Steve Cohen could say whatever he wants. Scott Boras is not going to not talk to him anymore. That's
exactly right. I did a piece, I want to say about 6-7 years ago, where I quoted anonymous executives over the value of a player in the free agent market, and he happened to be a Boras client. And the next day, the union, of course, pushed by Scott, announces they're doing an investigation. Right. And they went into, my phone records and that whole thing. Scott could do that if he really wanted to, but, and he could do it to his sports writer. He's not going to do it to the richest owner in baseball who just gave one of his clients a record-setting contract. I completely agree with you. It would have to be something much stronger than what Steve did the other day. And the other thing, too, is that it's not like Steve came out and said, we're out, we're done. He kind of kept the door open. And I feel that's what's going to happen. The Mets are keeping the light on for Pete Alonso. The question is, when is he going to come through the door?
Well, it's interesting, too, because a couple of weeks ago, everybody that we spoke to, Buster, pretty much said, Alonso and the Mets were done. But, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's a real market for Pete out there. And the Mets have held firm on the number. I actually wonder whether or not the Mets really, truly want him back. But they have held firm at a number, which would be a bargain, I guess, that they're looking at. 3 years, $68 to $70 million. I think Pete might have to come back to them. I think there is now a chance that he could be a Met.
Yeah, and it all depends on, if Pete's willing to, go to Toronto or go to some other team that comes in late, the Angels, for example. But I can't imagine that he's going to get much more money than what the Mets offered him.
Right.
You and I talked in the fall about how the industry values corner infielders, and especially corner infielders who aren't good defenders. And Pete, on his best day is an average defender, who are on the other side of 30 years old, the way that Pete is. It's just the recent history, and David Stearns' time with the Milwaukee Brewers is the best example of this, where they're not going to pay players there. It's been more than a decade since the last time that a first baseman got over $200 million. So, we know Pete turned down the $158 from the Mets in 2023. I think I said to you at that time, I couldn't imagine that there'd be a line of teams looking to step up, even though Pete's an elite power hitter. The industry just feels like those guys are replaceable. Look, Freddie Freeman is a future Hall of Famer. He's a guy who competes for the batting title every year. He, is a Gold Glove caliber first baseman. He's a clutch hitter. When he was a free agent, the Atlanta Braves offered him $135 million, and he wound up taking less when you factor in deferred money, that sort of state tax, that to sign with the Dodgers. Freddie Freeman. And so the idea that Pete was going to get $200 million, I always thought was a mirage all along. I agree with you that this might be a case where Pete circles back to them and signs a Cody Bellinger type deal where it's a 3-year contract, and we know that the two sides were in agreement on that. If they find the right compensation, and he has some opt-outs in the deal.
I really thought that Joel Sherman in the post said had a great line. He said most players rue the fact that they were born too early, but in Pete's case, he was born too late, because if he was a child of the 70s or the 80s, the deal that he's looking for, he might be able to get, but he's not getting it now.
That's exactly right. Look, when Miguel Cabrera, I never forget the reaction, when Miguel Cabrera, right in the middle of his greatness with the Detroit Tigers, signed this monster deal. I can't remember the numbers, like $240 million, and he was about Pete's age. People with other teams were losing their minds, off the record, saying, what are they doing? Why would you pay someone like that? And then at the end of that contract, Miguel Cabrera was not a good defender. He was a good hitter, but he didn't run necessarily very well. People with other teams thought that's just a position that you're not going to invest a lot of money in. And the industry really has followed up on that. And we've seen that year after year after year, first basemen don't get paid.
All right, let's talk about the interview that Meredith Marakovits did with Hal Steinbrenner, which really caused a ripple effect throughout the country, baseball country, where, the one, I agreed with a lot of what he said, Buster, but when he said us owners, most of us owners can't afford to do that, I take exception with us. He can afford to do it. The Red Sox can afford to do it. The Mets can afford to do it. The Phillies, and the teams that could. I think there are many owners that can't afford to do it. But do you think that this is setting up for, the industry shutting down to try to get a salary cap?
I really hope not, because you and I both know that that's not going to happen without a long labor stoppage, like a year. People, when they think back to the last major labor stoppage in baseball, 94, 95, that really is, I know you remember, it wasn't really a fight between the players who went on strike in August and the owners. It was a fight between the small market teams and the big market teams. Now, to bring it forward, I agree with you that, you're hearing more and more complaints of other owners saying, hey, wait a second, the Dodgers have all this deferred money and they're putting all this, they're spending like crazy. I think one of the differences between Hal and George is that I think Hal feels a larger responsibility to other owners in a way that George didn't. Now, George, as you know, he sort of tempered down toward the end of his time as an owner and was more in lockstep with some of his peers. I think Hal feels a larger responsibility to the other owners, to the industry. I agree with you. When he said, us owners essentially can't afford that, look, the Yankees at worst, if they were to be sold, would probably be, market for something in the range of $6 to $8 billion. Of course they could afford, another contract for, I'm just pulling a name out of the air, Alex Bregman for $200 million. Of course they could push the payroll to $400 million. But I think Hal thinks of it as a larger industry. And the other thing, too, because I think you can make arguments on both sides of this. I also think that, so much of Hal is judged so often through the prism of this George Steinbrenner specter that wasn't real. Like, people always think that, George, he got all the great players. Well, he made a lot of mistakes, too. You know better than anybody. He drove the franchise into the ground in the 80s because he was so reckless. And on any given day, I mean, his search for marquee players, I think, absolutely made the Yankees relevant again in the 1970s. But on a daily basis, he was the biggest threat to the Yankees because he was so reckless. And Hal, not everything that George Steinbrenner did was great, but I don't think fans remember that.
No, it's unbelievable the curve that he's being graded on, because I happen to think, and people are going to say, well, Michael, works for the Yes Network, was owned by and then it's all true, and I actually like Hal personally, but I think he runs the organization in a very responsible manner. He's not cheap, because if he was cheap, he could have a $200 million payroll and still make the playoffs in the American League. But I mean, Yankee fans are holding him up to this specter of top prime George. And he's not George. He doesn't want to be that guy. He's very introspective, and he's very deliberate and things like that. I think he gets a raw deal. I really do.
And look, I'm not paid by the Yes Network. I agree with you, because I think, as I said, the standard of George that he's held to is a fabrication. It was never that way. The Yankee greatness in the 90s was born at the time when George basically couldn't screw the organization up. And in that time, in that vacuum, is when Derek Jeter was developed, and Jorge Posada and Andy Pettitte and Mariano Rivera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't happen if George is still running the team, because he was so reckless. Now, there was a time that's comparable where the Dodgers are now, where when Hideki Irabu comes on the market, it felt like, well, the Yankees are going to get him, and they did. And Orlando Hernandez, El Duque, when he hit the market, the Yankees were going to get him. That has changed. Now it feels like the Dodgers are the team that will always get those type of players.
Now, one of the things that the Dodgers have done, I think, that rankle the most people, and because they're owned by a hedge fund, it makes a lot of sense for them to do it. I think they have like $1.3 billion deferred in the next 10 years. I mean, if there's a downturn in baseball, they could end up going bankrupt, but I don't think that's going to happen. The Yankees don't believe in carrying debt service on their team. They don't do that. Do you think that's something that Major League Baseball is going to say, okay, the deferments have to stop? Do they think, because all the Japanese players want to play for the Dodgers, that the next collective bargaining agreement, they actually might have to have a draft for Japanese players? I mean, it's something that the Dodgers are doing nothing wrong, so I want that out there right now. They're not doing anything wrong, but will baseball try to put guardrails up on them?
I do think that you will see, and when we talk about baseball, let's talk about other owners.
Right.
It's not Rob Manfred. It's not like Rob Manfred has the power to step in and say, the Dodgers, you're not allowed to do this. Rob Manfred's a lawyer for the 30 owners. The power of change is going to, attempted change is going to come from the other owners. And yes, I think they'll try to do something, which is why I think the conditions might be right for a labor issue, where the small markets fight the big markets, insist on something like a salary cap because they don't like what the Dodgers have done, and they go to war with the players.
Right.
Do I think there'll be some sort of an attempted adjustment? Absolutely. The Dodgers are so respected within the industry for the player development that they've done, which has been excellent, for the culture that they've built, which has been excellent. As you know, when they acquired Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and some of these great players, they didn't pay sticker price.
Right.
They had deferred salary. They've done a great job with that stuff. But as I've had executives say to me this winter, it now feels like gluttony. And the Dodgers are separating themselves. The sport is a confederacy of 30 different private businesses, and the Dodgers are running their team differently than anybody else right now. And I think there will be an effort by other teams to reel them in. And about deferred money, look, it's not new. Earlier today I was talking to Bobby Bonilla. Every year we have Bobby Bonilla Day on July 1st. The Orioles, when I covered them in the mid-'90s, Peter Angelos loved deferred salary. He did that with a bunch of his players. The Nationals have done it. It's just that the Dodgers have done it at a level and landed these great players that's gotten them more scrutiny.
All right, so David Stearns, the Mets GM, who's very bright, was on CNBC. And he was quoted as saying, we've seen other sports figure out how to make it happen, more of a level playing field. Baseball's had a little bit of a tougher time figuring it out, how to make that happen. And I would say, I don't think it can happen in baseball. There is not a Wellington Mara in baseball. When Wellington Mara decided to share it equally, the NFL was kind of in infant stages. It had been around 25 years, but still it had not taken hold. You can't convince the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets and the Red Sox to actually give back all the money they make and throw it into a pot. That's why I think it's an unsolvable problem, Buster.
I completely agree. The horse went out the barn back in 1901 when, baseball's salaries system was set up. And look, you haven't mentioned the players. I think in some ways, the Players Association also is a major roadblock because, as you know, they're philosophically opposed to any sort of salary cap. I do think there are legitimate reasons for them to look at that system. If there's more money available for more players, I don't know why you wouldn't at least study it. But to this point, it's been a point of philosophy for the union, and they just flat out reject it. It reminds me to some degree of the steroid issue back in the 90s, where the union would always say, nope, we're not going to entertain it. Privacy issue, we'll never entertain it. And what you heard from individual players, and you heard this, I heard it, was, wait a second, maybe we should have drug testing. I've talked to individual players who've heard about a salary cap. They heard that it's possible that under this system that more players would get more money, and their feeling is, wait a second, if the pie we all draw from is bigger, shouldn't we at least talk about that? But to this point, the Players Association's perspective is absolutely not.
Well, see, I'm a big believer in a free market, so I'm not in favor of a salary cap. But the one thing that I do push back on, well, because Marvin Miller said we're never going to have a salary cap, and he's the guiding force, everything that he said. But you can't look at the salary cap anymore as you're not going to get paid, because the NFL and the NBA, they have players that make way more money than Juan Soto that aren't even close to Juan Soto's talent. So a salary cap does not necessarily mean that you're not going to get paid. I think it comes down to this, Buster, and you know better than I do. I don't think the players really trust the owners enough to make a full accounting of what the revenues are to split evenly.
I think that's absolutely part of it, and I think the idea of putting any sort of limit on the numbers that the players get is just something that they're opposed to. My pushback on that would be, why not at least have the conversation? And I don't know if it would result in anything. I don't know if it would lead anywhere. I do know that if you can make the pie bigger, if you feel like that would mean more money for more players, why wouldn't you at least take the time to look at it and explore it, bring in your own set of accountants, assess it, and see if it would work for more players?
The thing that I also think is a problem with baseball, and has been for years, it's not just the owners against the players, it's the owners against the owners against the players. So I don't know if the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds and the Kansas City Royals want to have a salary cap of $220 million. They don't want to spend that. So I think you've got these small market owners that want to bring salaries back, but they don't want a floor and they don't want a ceiling. They're kind of happy the way it is, but they just want to spread the wealth a little bit more. You think that's accurate?
Yep, I do, 100%. Look, there are definitely been owners who through the years are completely comfortable just sitting back, finishing in fourth place in their division, and making a profit.
Right.
There's no question about it. And that's, as I say, baseball, I think that so often people think of Major League Baseball as being this, business that's run from the top down. Rob Manfred's pulled the string on everything. He isn't. As you know, you and I both know this. He's like the White House spokesperson. Other people have more power than Rob Manfred does. And, what needs to be settled is the disagreements between the owners and between the Players Association and the owners, which every time we have a labor agreements issue, we know it's really bad, the relationship between these two sides.
Talking with Buster Olney here on the Michael Kay Show. Okay, so is it true that Alex Bregman could go back to Houston? And is it true that Houston would actually put Altuve in left if that happens?
Okay, within the Astros organization, when that story sort of began to emerge last week, their feeling was that conversation is being generated outside of our organization. They have never formally taken their offer off the table, 6 years and $156 million. But when that came out last week, there was tremendous skepticism within the Astros organization that it would actually happen. Their sense is that wherever it was coming from, it was essentially being generated to put, to try to create more leverage with other teams that Bregman might be talking to. And as far as we know, that might be Detroit, could be Boston, could be Toronto. I think he would be a great fit for the Red Sox to play second base, but the Red Sox ownership is allergic to long-term deals. If he goes to Toronto, as you know, I mean, he essentially is going to the Siberia of the American League East. You know, we don't know how long it's going to be before the Blue Jays become relevant again. Detroit's interesting. And, of course, A.J. Hinch, his former manager, is the manager of the Tigers. But I don't know how much money they're willing to pay him. I think the real problem for Bregman is that last summer the Giants signed Matt Chapman, who's about the same age, and like Alex Bregman, he's an excellent third baseman, to a 6-year, $156 million deal. That's exactly what the Astros offered him. And that kind of boxed in Bregman's market in terms of what his ceiling might be as a free agent.
And it's also interesting that, Chapman is also a Boras client. So, I mean, he kind of set the own market that he's trying to supersede.
That's exactly right. And as you remember, a lot of those conversations that Chapman had with the Giants were directly between he and Buster Posey.
Right.
And we've heard this about, how some players will work with the team directly. Even Scott Boras clients, Andrew Jones once did it with the Atlanta Braves. Jared Weaver did it with the Angels.
Bernie did it with the Yankees.
Exactly. So I think this could be a situation where, if Alex Bregman wants, more money, he might have to play this out a little bit longer. I know the Astros feel like this was a leverage play that could land him with another team.
Great stuff, Buster. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Michael.
You got it. That's Buster Olney. Good stuff from him. It's Superbox Bonanza 6, and your chance to get your box for the big game with a prize pool of $2,000. All qualifiers will get an ESPN prize pack and a chance at one of 10 Superbox prizes. Listen daily through February 6th to DPHO and Rothenberg, Barton Carlin, The Michael K. Show, and Don Hahn and Rosenberg. This year's big game payouts are $250 in the first and third quarters, $500 at halftime, and a final score payout of $1,000. All brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, Sloman Security, and Security Dodge. Shop 24/7 at securitydodge.com during their President's Day sales event. For full contest details, go to superboxbonanza.com. We have found Mike Breen. He will join us in about 5 minutes to talk the Knicks' big victory over the Nuggets, so stay tuned for that. The voice of the NBA will join us in a moment. The FanDuel Kick of Destiny is back, and this time it's every Manning for himself. This Super Bowl, two legends will take the field in a sudden death field goal showdown, Peyton versus Eli. Live from New Orleans, one kick to claim the ultimate family bragging rights. Who will rise to the moment? Pick your winner now in the FanDuel app, and if you back the right brother, you'll earn a share of $10 million in bonus bets. It's the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3. Make your free pick, and don't forget to tune in to watch the showdown live during the Super Bowl 59 pregame show on Fox. That's at 3 p.m. May the best Manning win. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/K and bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. 21 plus and physically present in New York. No purchase necessary. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Harry Douglas here, and if you're constantly on the go like I am, then earbuds are a priority. That's why you need Technique's new noise-canceling AZ80s. Like you, these buds work as hard as they play. You'll get Technique's legendary high-res audio, along with state-of-the-art noise cancellation, so you can stay in your zone. Visit us.techniques.com/sports to shop for AZ80s now. That's us.technics.com/sports.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy, comfy. I'm cozy, cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. Blisters. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod.
TaxAct knows filing your taxes can be complicated, and that's why we have live experts to help you with any questions. They can hold your hand through the process beginning to end. Metaphorically, of course. I mean, they can't actually hold your hand in person. I suppose you could hold your computer mouse while you chat with the expert about capital gains or whatever, which is sort of like holding hands. Sorry, point is, our tax experts can make filing easier. Tax Act. Let's get them over with.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Talk to Mike Breen in a moment. I don't know if you guys saw this. This was on First Take. Cam Newton is on First Take once a week, I think. And Stephen A. Smith said, would you trade your MVP for a Super Bowl win? And I kind of give Newton credit. He was honest. He said, no, I'd rather have the MVP. And if you think about it, there's one MVP a year. There's 53 men that win the Super Bowl. There are 53 Super Bowl rings. And, you know, obviously people that aren't on the active roster, so it's even more, and coaches and things like that. One person can be the MVP. Now, you could say, well, he's a selfish guy. He just cares about personal accolades. He said, but I'd rather have been great than be a guy like, you know, a Brad Johnson who wins an MVP and didn't have a great year. It's just part of the show. He goes, I did everything I could to win a Super Bowl by being the MVP. We just didn't win. You know, they ended up losing in the Super Bowl. So it's certainly a fascinating conversation to have because, you know, it's a team game and the ultimate goal is to win the Lombardi Trophy. But would you rather win the MVP and been one of all the players in the NFL that is considered the most valuable in the league, or be one of a vast team that actually won the Super Bowl? Interesting, right? So you do wonder. But I think he's going to get criticized for saying it. He should be criticized for the hats he wears, but he's going to be criticized for saying it. And I don't know if that's real. It's really a legitimate criticism because he's just being honest, and we want athletes to be honest, and he was honest rather than win the MVP. Now, coming up at 3 o'clock, Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. And they have a special guest in studio, and that's Frank the Tank. And Don did a walk with Frank the Tank last week. I think it's being revealed today on Barstool. So Frank the Tank will join them in studio in the 3 o'clock hour. Now we are joined by my good friend, Mike Breen, the voice of the NBA, voice of the Knicks on MSG. And he saw a great one yesterday with the Knicks beating the Nuggets by 10 and looking dominant in every way, shape, and form. Hi, Mike. How are you?
You know, first I want to say that conversation, Buster Olney the guy is so good. He's like the best guest. He's so smart. He knows his sport. But that was such a fascinating conversation. I love that. Absolutely. That's such a great thing to listen to if you're a baseball fan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So you were just
this will not be as fascinating. This will not be as fascinating.
I think, well, I mean, off past performance, probably not. But if you go deeper, I think it could be. I think it could be. I was fascinated.
I'll do my best.
I was mesmerized, Mike, by watching that game yesterday. I loved how well the Knicks played in every facet of the game, and their bench contributed. Jalen Brunson was magnificent. And then I love what Jokic said. He said they're one of the top 5 teams in basketball, and they could win a championship. Do you sign off on what Jokic said?
Yeah, they've taken a step in the last week with these last 3 victories, and the step that was taken is a defensive step, and that to me has always been the key. Like offensively, right now they're as good as anybody in the NBA. That starting 5 is spectacular, and they're getting better because they're getting used to each other. You have to remember, there's 2 new starters to that starting 5. And one of them is a center unlike any center they've had in recent memory. You know, you go from a Mitch Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, 2 really good defensive centers, to this offensive juggernaut. It's going to take time. So as good as the offense has been, it's even getting better. But the defense is what, to me, over the last 3 games has been what's been special. And they're playing against really good offensive teams. They're not going to hold them to 89 points like the old Knicks defense. That's not the way the league is anymore. But way they have turned the corner a bit, and it's one game at a time. I get it. There's still such a long way to go. But you see now the defensive potential. And to me, that's the most encouraging of the past week.
And the thing that jumped out at me yesterday, Mike, from the, last couple of minutes of the third quarter, the first 5 or 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, that was essentially the bench, and they didn't just hold on. They actually extended the lead, and that's one of the big criticisms about this Knicks team. While they don't have a good enough bench, I think that if Mitchell Robinson gets back, I don't think they have to make deals. I think their bench is good enough, and it gives Thibodeau a reason to go to them and trust them a little bit more.
Could not agree more. The Robinson return, I think, is a game changer for them. He's exactly what they need. But I also agree that the bench has been a big part. And clearly, Tom Thibodeau is starting to trust them a little more. I think he realized, and part of it was the schedule. The schedule was a tough go, and there were a couple of games where they looked tired. And you might think, an extra 4 minutes for Cameron Payne, an extra 5 minutes for Deuce McBride and Precious Achiuwa might not make a difference. It makes an enormous difference. So now all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, you've got a little bit, not just physically, but mentally. That's an underestimated part. The mental fatigue that you have in an 82-game schedule. And you get a little extra rest here and there, whether it's during a game, whether it's on an off day. That makes a big difference. And all three of them, four of them actually now, with Shamet, Payne, McBride, and Achiuwa, all were a big part of that win. And that's another reason. And they didn't play their best game last night. They had some stretches where, all of a sudden Denver's up 8. And that the mental toughness of fighting back and then having another dominant stretch, to me, it was one of the better wins of the season because they didn't play their best, yet they still handled their business quite well.
It's so funny you mentioned that. We're talking with Mike Breen here on the Michael K. Show, because I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game with my son, and we're talking about things, and I looked up and they were down by 8, and I said, all of a sudden it just happened, and that was a perfect excuse for them to, okay, it's the Nuggets, we're going to lose this game. But they didn't just crawl back. They dominated after that. That shows you that they've got a little something about them.
Yeah, the last year's team, the mental toughness, I thought, was one of the strengths. Early on this season, I didn't think that was the case, but they're now developing that. Mikal Bridges, Knicks gave up a lot for him, and he was up and down a little bit. But the guy's, his body of work shows you how good he is, both as a scorer and as a defender. And today in sports, there's no such thing as patience. Everything has to happen right away. Sometimes it just doesn't mesh right away. For example, the 2008 Celtics, when they brought in Garnett and Ray Allen to join Paul Pierce, man, that clicked from day one. Right. But the Miami Heat with Bosh and Wade and LeBron James, that didn't click right away. That took some time. And sometimes it just takes a little time. And Bridges was saying that the other day, and I thought he was right on when they asked him about the improvement defensively. He goes, we just needed to play more together. We needed practices. We need to get a comfort level. And that's part of it. And again, there's going to be some stumbles during the regular season. But I'm so encouraged by the last week, mainly because of the defense and because of the bench. And if Mitchell Robinson comes back, that's just going to make them even better.
All right, so I'm over the moon about this team, but there's two things that concern me. The first thing is, one of the strengths and the unicorn aspect of Karl Anthony Towns is his ability to dominate from 3. And I think that with his injured thumb, I don't think that's there anymore. The other day when he shot 2 of 4, that made me feel good, but he just, he shot a 3 yesterday. He was way off on it. And I don't know if that injury heals, Mike. So is that going to take away part of his arsenal?
It could. It's a concern because that part of his arsenal is an enormous weapon, and it opens up his drives to the basket. But last night, I thought Towns' game was one of my favorites of the season because he didn't have a lot. He was kind of out of rhythm for a good portion of the game. Then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, he had those 2 big drives to the basket. He had another big slam, and then he had that block shot. That's like the most important stretch he's had, and especially when you see it on the defensive end. I remember when for a while there was talk, he's a really highly skilled big man, but a little soft. He's not soft at all. This guy gets more rebounds in traffic than anybody, and he's shown some toughness going to the basket. He takes his hits, and I think that, defensively, he's not going to make an NBA all-defensive team, but he's really working at it, and he's trying to, because he's a smart player, he's understanding now what he has around him and what he can do more of that perhaps he didn't think he could do early in the season. I'm really impressed with him as a teammate. He doesn't really care if he has a 30-point game. He refers to Jalen Brunson as the captain. He's lobbying for Josh Hart to be an all-star. I think he got that taste of winning last year by going to the conference finals with Minnesota, and it's a drug that he loves because he wants to drink more out of that cup.
All right, and there's one other thing that concerns me, and that's the consistency of this team. And maybe that will come along as they gel a little bit more. But there are games like yesterday where you're just enthralled by their entire game, and then they throw in stinkers. Do you think that that's going to be an issue the rest of the way, or are they finding their stride now where they will be consistently great every night?
Well, there'll be stinkers, but I think look around the league outside of OKC and Cleveland, every team, and even Cleveland's had a little stumble lately, but every other team besides those two have had multiple games where you shake your head and like, what happened to that? And it's a product of the league in the way the game is played now, that if you have a game where you're not shooting your threes and the other team's lighting it up, you could lose to the worst team in the league. It's part of the pace of play and the style of play now that I think you're seeing that a little bit more than you did in recent years. But hopefully, the key is to get more consistent as the season goes on. Thibodeau, every team that he's ever coached, certainly in New York, those are the ones clearly that I see more. His teams always get better as the season goes on, always, and that's been the case with this team right now.
I don't know if you saw the stat, but it just I couldn't believe it, and it was from a follow on X called New York Basketball. So the Knicks have 32 wins, Mike. That equals the most wins they had in any of the 6 full seasons prior to Leon Rose in 2020. Maybe it's because he's camera shy and doesn't want to do interviews. The only one he's done is with you. This guy deserves his flowers. I mean, the way he's turned around this organization and made it not just a consistently excellent team, but entertaining as well. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he and his staff have done.
Magnificent. And the thing is they took their time. They weren't looked to make the home run right away to show, hey, look at us, we've arrived. It's been a perfect slow build. And it's not just a blockbuster trade from Towns. The Josh Hart trade is one of the great trades in franchise history. And the OG Anunoby trade, which people were upset with because they lost 2 homegrown fan favorites in Quickly and Barrett. OG Anunoby, in the games he's played since he became a Knick, his record is 52-19. I mean, that's astounding. And it's not just finding good players, it's finding players that fit with what you have. I couldn't agree more. He's done an unbelievable job. He's just not interested in being out in the spotlight. He doesn't care if he gets the credit. All he wants is to build a team for the players, the coaches, and clearly for the fans.
I've got to get your take on it because I talked about this at the open of the show, and it's just we both know Peter Vecsey, and Peter Vecsey's been great to both of us. But Peter Vecsey can be very, very critical, even of people that he likes. I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but last night he sent this out. Allan is NBA's most informative sideline studio authority. Nobody in his position with the Knicks better prepared or ask more appropriate halftime postgame questions. His skills as a former Newsday sports writer have made his transformation since 2010 and 11 positively impeccable. You and I both know, I mean, that's like a compliment beyond compliments. This is a man that doesn't hand them out. It's unbelievable when I read that, Mike.
First off, it's so deserved.
Yes.
And secondly, Peter has told me that multiple times over the last 3 years. In fact, I've relayed the message to Allan multiple times, and I said exactly what you said. I said, listen, Allan, he's not throwing bouquets at many people. You are like way up on his list, and it's great to see him get the credit. Allan reminds me, not to embarrass you, he's like you in that he took his years as a newspaper man, and it's helped him make him a great broadcaster, a different dimension that people who've just broadcasted and never covered from a newspaper angle. And he takes that combination, and he so loves the game. He lives, breathes, and dies basketball, for crying out loud, and is so into it and knows what New York is like because he's a New Yorker himself. it's just a perfect combination. We are so lucky to have him. And I agree with you. It's great to see get that kind of credit from somebody who has, one of the greatest newspaper men of all time and the greatest NBA columnist of all time saying something about you. That'll make your day.
Yeah, he tosses that around like a manhole cover. So for him to do it, he really does feel it. It's just amazing. I texted Allan. He goes, people are going to think I hacked into Peter's account. No, but he is great and he deserves it. But getting it from Vecsey is just amazing. It's just amazing.
Hey,
So
by the
happy
way,
for
when
him.
you and Charlie are watching the game, like what's in front of you? Is it chips? Is it healthy stuff? What are you drinking? What are you eating when you're watching the game?
Well, pretzels, stuff like that he likes. But for the most part, he's got this little basketball. And so he'll be running back and forth and creating the plays that we see on the – and then I've got to throw him passes and stuff like that. That's what's happening. So if you want to visualize it.
You know what? It's so wonderful that he, at the time when he's really developing this love of the sport and the love of the team, that they're so good. My kids, when they were growing up, initially with the Ewing Starks and Oakley Knicks, it was fun, but they were so young and they went through a lot of years where the team just wasn't very good, and they're having the times of their lives. And I think about that all the time. All these Knicks fans that have been so hungry for a good team to root for have this team of the last couple of years that not only are successful and win, but the way they win, the type of players, the type of people they are.
Very likable.
I'm so thrilled for the Knicks fan. Because I remember the days where the Knicks, they won 17 games for a season, and it'd be a game in April, and they're 30 games out of a playoff spot. And if it's a tie game with 2 minutes to go in a meaningless game in April, the fans at the Garden are going crazy. It's a fan base that deserves this type of team, and that's one of the things I love. But the atmosphere at the Garden the past couple of games this week, Monday and Wednesday, it just brings you such joy for those people who stood by the team through all the tough times.
Next game up, Lakers on Saturday night. You'll be doing that on ABC. Mike, we always appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Michael.
You got it, Michael. Thanks. That's Mike Breen, the voice of the NBA, and, of course, the voice of the Knicks. Hey, it's Michael K. Not sleeping well? Well, it could be your mattress, and I'm here to tell you that my friends at PC Richard & Son use a 4-step mattress fitting process to make sure your new bed fits you perfectly. Right now, save big on Sealy, Tempur-Pedic, and Stearns & Foster, and you'll get $300 cash back instantly to use on anything else in the store. So please, do what I do. Get to PC Richard & Son, the local company that you could trust for your new mattress.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton bedding from Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with airy blankets, cloud-like duvets, and breathable sheets. You'll experience pure comfort on night 1 and feel your bedding get softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first order at bowlinbranch.com with code SPORTS15. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
What a fun time on the show today. Buster and Mike Breen, they were awesome. You guys were awesome as well. So let me give you something. It's Superbox Bonanza 6. Each qualifier will take home an ESPN prize pack and have a chance at one of 10 Superbox prizes including a Ninja Air Fryer, Solo Stove, Ray-Ban Meta Wayfarers, and more. Be caller number 8 right now at 888-987-ESPN to select a box for the big game with a chance to win $250 in the first and third quarters, $500 at halftime, and a final score payout of $1,000. All brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, Sloman Security, and Security Dodge. Shops 24/7 at securitydodge.com during their President's Day sales event. I thought this was really interesting. There's a follow that I have on X, Joe Pompliano, who does a lot of business stuff. With the Chiefs, if they win the Super Bowl, you know who's going to benefit a lot? Pat Riley. He's going to make over $1 million because of a decision he made nearly 40 years ago. Riley led the Lakers to back-to-back NBA championships in 87 and 88. So in 89, with the Lakers looking to win a third consecutive championship, Riley filed a trademark for three-peat. Trademark was granted to Riley and essentially covers everything related to merchandise. The Lakers lost in the NBA Finals that year to the Pistons, but Riley's trademark is still paying off decades later. He reportedly made $300,000 when the Bulls completed a three-peat in 93 and another $600,000 when they did it again in 98. So if we adjust for inflation, according to Joe Pompliano, the $600,000 that Riley earned in 98 would be in line to earn another $1.2 million in a Chiefs Super Bowl win. So Pat Riley probably rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. He came up with it, trademarked it, and it's his forever. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. So he'll make over $1 million if the Chiefs can beat the Eagles. All right, Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg coming up in just a moment. You got to stay tuned for that. It's been a fun show. We'll have a big Friday show tomorrow starting at 1. We want you to be here as well. And in the words of Billy Joel, life is a series of hellos and goodbyes. I'm afraid it's time for goodbye again. See everybody. Have a great, great afternoon. Hey, maybe the off season, but every season is Bigelow tea season. You know I'm picky about what I drink, especially on days I have a show. One of the first things I do each day is reach for a mug full of Bigelow tea. I love the different flavor options, and it's perfect for someone who makes his living behind a microphone. Want to know what keeps me going? Look no further than my cup of Bigelow tea next to me in the studio. So grab a mug full of your favorite Bigelow tea and tea proudly. Bigelow tea, the official hot tea of the New York Yankees.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.